This is a podcast about both having autism and living with someone who has autism. My mom is Sonya, and I'm Josh, and this is Josh Has Autism.
Hey everybody.
Hello.
Thanks for stopping by, hanging out with us again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here. This podcast is a little bit different because Josh had an idea for the podcast. Usually it's the other way around. Usually I scramble my brains and come up with something that we can talk about that hopefully will help somebody out there. Maybe they're going through it, or if not, just maybe to help to understand what it's like for somebody with autism to go through whatever it is we're talking about. Yeah. So you came up with the idea this week.
Yeah, I did, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yes. So, go ahead.
This particular podcast is going to be about points of view and how my point of view is usually based off of fact or educated guesses rather than something like emotional responses. Okay. Even my emotional responses are more based off of educated guesses or facts or how well I know the person and things like that.
Okay.
And, a perfect example of this would be that a little bit of backstory before I get into the example itself.
Okay.
Whenever my grandpa was really sick with cancer, it was really difficult for me to see him in that much pain. And just not as strong as I'm used to seeing him, you know?
Mm-hmm. That was a tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whenever he did finally pass, it was a relief to me because he was no longer in pain or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever the viewing came about, everyone else was mourning and sad and upset and all these different emotions, and I had to sort of fake it.
I'm laughing, but that must because it just the dichotomy of that is just to me makes me laugh, but I'm not laughing at you. The whole that must have been pretty difficult.
It was. Everyone else was so sad, and then here I am. I'm happy for him,
right?
Because he's no longer in pain or anything like that,
right?
And yet I had to put on this face that was sad and mopey, and so that I wouldn't offend people, even if they are family.
Right. And that's something that you were taught, that interaction with people. So did I or your dad ask of you to something that is that something that either myself or your dad, did we verbalize something that we expected something from you like that, or is it something that through the therapies you were trying to mimic an emotion that you saw in front of you?
I think this is one of those occasions where it was a mixture of both of those.
Okay.
Not that anyone ever told me to put on a face to fit in. Because, growing up, you were always telling me, be your own person. Mm-hmm. And this is just one of those things about respect. For not just for myself, but for other people and for Grandpa. Mm-hmm. And I respected Grandpa so much.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of those instances where I knew that I couldn't be happy outwardly because of
the grief that was all around you.
Yes.
Right. So that's interesting, because it sounds like you made a choice to you made a choice to be what you thought would be respectful for those of us that were really hurting at the time, because you read an emotion.
Yes.
And that's a significant and huge deal in and of itself, because you reading other people's emotions was something at that stage of your life was limited.
Yeah.
And you were really working on.
Yeah.
So that's pretty significant. And it's interesting because in our country we do grieve when people that we love are lost. Because we feel the hurt, Yeah. I mean, in a tangible way, we miss their physical bodies being here.
Yeah.
In other countries, they rejoice.
Yeah.
And even in our country, certain cultures, I guess, they rejoice.
I don't know if it's also in Spain, but I know Mexico has the Day of the Dead,
mm-hmm.
where they celebrate
mm-hmm.
those who have passed.
Right.
So it's
right.
With me, though, it's in this particular instance, it was an educated guess, so to speak, based off of other people's emotions of
right.
what would be appropriate or not.
Got it. So you weren't motivated by your emotion of feeling the sadness that you saw around you, but you were knowledgeable enough at that time to decide to blend in.
Yeah, I guess that could be a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make light of this situation either, because
sure.
it was
sure.
My relief
mm-hmm.
at him finally passing wasn't relief for me. I mean, yeah, I felt like a burden was finally lifted.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't in pain anymore. He wasn't suffering.
Right.
And that made all the difference.
Right. For you, it was a done deal.
Yes.
Got it.
It happened. I'm relieved, and I moved on.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't easy at times, but
right. Sure. Because you spent a lot of time with Grandpa.
Yeah.
And he spoiled you rotten and took you out to lunch and dinner all the time. So you had a really good relationship with him.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this or not, but so Grandpa had lung cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say out loud to anybody that's out there that needs a boost, if you're giving up cigarettes, good for you. It can save your life and keep you around for others to enjoy you for a longer period of time. So, if you are smoking, I know it's tough. As Grandpa, he couldn't quit. It was just something that he just could not quit.
Yeah.
If you're smoking now, please consider that, and we love you. Want to keep you around.
Yeah.
So when Grandpa got sick, I would, through all the chemo that I took him to, we had this conversation one time, and so the conversation went, well, Dad, if this, we need to have conversations about the end of life. This is a tough situation. So just help me to know what you would like if arrangements need to be made. And he didn't know. He said, I don't know. And I go, so what about this shirt? Yeah, that'd be all right. What about you can have Dave's one of his the sports coat, the one that you wore to Lindsay's wedding. He said, yeah, that'd be fine. I said, okay, what about the tie that you wore to that wedding? How about that? He goes, that'd be fine. And I dug through his closet and I found some pants. And I said, what about these pants? He goes, yeah, that'd be fine. And I said, so, but you don't really care about any of this? No, I don't care. Whatever you want to do, I don't care. So I said, okay, so nobody's going to see your feet. And how about if we just don't mess with your shoes? No, I need my shoes on. So all of that, I always thought about Grandpa. I thought, all right, weirdo. Yeah, that was funny. Yeah. So that's a pretty intense situation where what was definite emotions for everybody else around you, you didn't feel those emotions, but it was a learned behavior that you've learned to maybe mimic others' behaviors.
Well, let me clarify that. I do feel emotions.
Yes, you do.
It's that most of my decision making is based off of fact or educated guesses.
Right. Okay.
Even my emotional responses are usually based off of fact or some derivative thereof.
Okay.
So I'm not saying my facts are always right.
What? What? Let's see what time it is. The day and the time. We need to mark this down.
Well, just from the past experience, my facts aren't always right.
Wow. That was when you were growing up, especially when you were in middle school and in high school. If you had an opinion, it was so hard to get you to see a different point of view. So in high school and middle school, it was tough for you to see a different point of view. Yeah. And that's something that through therapy has really helped you to be able to get to that point. You know, I am laughing at you because of what you said. I thought I'd never hear that sentence. Yeah. It's something that you really worked hard to get to a point where you can accept a different point of view. Yeah.
And my experiences in elementary and middle and high school, they were, how can I say this? There were times where I would have to react, and I would react before I could think. Mm-hmm. It had nothing to do with emotions or anything else like that. I mean, having a basketball thrown at your face, for example. Yeah. You don't think about, oh, should I move out of the way? No, you just do it. Mm-hmm. Or you move your hand to get it out of the way. Mm-hmm. And
so you're saying that emotions were that way, or
my reactions were not even thinking, but not even emotional. It was just happened so fast that I just would react to them.
Okay. Like as if, and you did have a basketball thrown at your face before.
Multiple times.
Right. And you're using that as an analogy to say that that's how you reacted in other situations as well, where emotion wasn't part of it.
It was just my body reacting to deal with the situation. Okay. Yeah. And then my mind would catch up. I'm like, oh crap, I'm going to be in trouble.
So when you're bringing up your point of view, and that it's not based on emotion, but it's based on fact or educated guesses, what's that like? I guess. What's that like? Because we know I am an emotional person, so emotions are in everything that I do. Yeah. Yeah. So explain that to me. What's that like?
My experiences that I feel and that I have to think through for a response, it's like right now, for example, I'm thinking of exactly which words I want to use, and sometimes it takes me a few seconds to be able to respond properly.
Mm-hmm.
That's because I want to be able to say the words properly the first time so that things are not confused or interpreted in the wrong way.
So is that because that's the innate being that you are? Or is that because of things that you've been taught through therapies? And
It's more so that my experience is that if I say the wrong thing, other people will hear that and it'll color everything else that I say to them afterwards.
So it's been learned, not necessarily through therapy,
but through experience.
Okay.
That my words have a definite response from other people that will then, even if it's not what I meant to say, and I say such, it still colors what people are viewing me saying.
Okay, I get it. And if that was reversed and somebody else says something and then go, okay, back up, that's not what I meant to say, and they start again, for you, there's not emotions involved there, so it's just factual, so that's easy for you to do?
Well, I can be offended like anyone else, but like if someone is saying something and to me, and it comes out wrong for them, and it's something that is like offensive to me, I'll still get offended, but I won't hold it against them. And if they say that's not how I was trying to say it, that's not what I meant to say, I'll listen to what they were trying to say and move on.
All right. So I've seen that up close. That when somebody, if you have that's, I don't know that I've ever really seen you offended, surprised, frustrated, upset, but then it's gone really quick.
Yeah.
It's not something that you hold on to.
Right.
Right. So what are other ways that, because like I said, so for me, any interaction is going to have emotions connected to it, because that's just who I am.
Yeah.
So for you, how does your point of view or your experience of having a fact-based everything, conversations, attitude, behavior, all of it.
What's your question?
Yeah, I guess that wasn't a question, was it? No. I didn't complete that question. How does that... Is that something that works for you? Or is that something that, as you are in social settings, that you find yourself adjusting just like you did at Grandpa's funeral?
I think I get what you're asking. Let me try and answer that.
I'm trying to make my stupid question better. There you go.
Well, one thing that I can say for sure is that at this point in my life, I have worked hard enough at it that I can go into a situation, hear something, and just like that, I'm in with the conversation. I'm reacting appropriately in a conversation. Like, instead of having to think through the different steps to make it appropriate, now, because I've had so much experience, that's not to say all the time it works, but I've had so much experience that I skip thinking it over, and I just do it.
Right. Right there, and there was what you're talking about is that there was a time that didn't come naturally to you.
Right.
A conversation, you're taking turns having a conversation, looking somebody in the eye when you're communicating, expressing yourselves with different tonality, with different, cadence.
Yeah.
All of that was something that you learned. So from the time that you were in third grade, you went into therapies that helped you with those things. And I remember one of the things that I learned about you way back then was that social interactions don't come naturally to you. So a heavy focus became getting you to interact with others, even though it didn't come naturally. Right. So for a long time, there would be a conversation that someone's having with you, and your response would be something having nothing to do with what the conversation is.
Right.
And so what you're talking about is it being quick now was at a time when you would have to count. We would get you to count like 1 to 10 sometimes, but to count, give it a couple beats.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the way that I understood it was that it doesn't come naturally to you, so you don't know where to go in a conversation. So you're being asked to give yourself a couple beats to come up with a response that's appropriate for the question or the statement.
Right.
That was just directed your way.
Right.
And
it took even longer for me to be able to get humor. And to be able to just banter back and forth.
Right. There were I would say in the thousands where it went like this, that you would say something you thought was funny in a room full of whomever it was, whether family or acquaintances or
right.
Therapists or professionals, whatever it was, and you would say something, and would look at you, and you'd go, "Oh, that wasn't funny." And it wasn't just that it wasn't funny; it would be highly inappropriate. Yeah, and so yes, but that was part of it. That was part of it, and you worked so hard. And earlier today, you made just perfect timing. You made a joke to me earlier today that was just perfect timing, and and it worked.
What was it?
I don't remember.
And that's one of the cool things about it, though, is that it's become so commonplace that you don't remember it.
Yes, you're absolutely right. When there was a time when that was something that was the highlight of not only the day but the week.
Yes. To
have those breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Because I think that something that's important is that people that, not to say that dealing with something on an emotional level is always the best thing, because feelings get hurt, and
right.
People get bent out of shape for things that's not necessary because it's not what was meant. It's not it just is over the top.
Right.
And for you, there was none of that. And when you talk with somebody, when you're in a social setting, just the interaction itself seems to me to have emotion to it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying that that's not who you are.
Right.
And so...
Again, that's not to say that I'm not an emotional person.
Correct.
It's that I don't let my emotions overrule how I think things through.
Well, that's an interesting way to put that, because to me it seems like not taking away anything. I'm saying that even though I deal with everything with emotions, I'm over the top and ridiculous half the time. But that's not... That's something that you had to learn, that of the emotions, you had to learn emotions, how to connect those, what they mean.
Right.
So for example, even somebody reading their nonverbal communication and their emotion, if somebody's just staring at you, with their eyebrows down, is that happy? Well, now you know no, but that's something that really had to be, well, that was part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Way back.
Yeah.
The fact that you're able to have a conversation now, and like you say, you don't miss a beat.
Yeah.
It's just
sometimes responses are a little delayed by a second or two.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me trying to come up with a joke most of the time. A proper response or whatever.
Right.
That isn't absolutely out there.
Right. Right. Yeah, I know what you mean. So tell me something. How does it, I guess, what's going on in you when you're having a conversation with somebody? Are you listening to the words, and those words are concrete, and therefore your answer can be concrete?
I actually found myself leaning more towards making light of conversations, trying to make people laugh.
Okay.
I found that most of the time humor can lighten up a situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I know how to be serious, and I know when it warrants it, I know that sometimes making a small joke and just to even get the other person to even just grin a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
that makes it so much easier to converse with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only have you connected with them, but you've made an emotional response come from something that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, right on.
yeah. And so, like, I totally forget your question at this point, but my thought is that if I am able to make a joke to make a situation better,
Mm-hmm.
I will.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, if it's a serious conversation that warrants a serious response, I'm going to be serious.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. I get it. And, something that I think needs to be said is that we talk about all the therapies that you went through and, all the help that you got, and ultimately, led to who you are today,
Mm-hmm.
which is incredible. It's just you're amazing. You are an amazing person.
Well, like I've said before, I'm awesome.
Yes, you are. You are. I want to make a point, though, that to be very clear about this, through your whole life, you were never told that the way that you did something was wrong. Rather, that when there were things that were necessary for you to interact with in society and to be successful, that's what we focused on.
Yes.
And that's what you were told. It said not that you were wrong in the way that you felt or how you processed something, but rather you would have an easier time in life and become more successful and hopefully leading to a happy life
Mm-hmm.
if there were things that you learned about interaction with other people.
Yeah.
And so that was the whole focus the whole time. The fact that you process the way that you do, and the fact that you're saying that when you have interactions there, it's fact. It's
Right.
not so much emotion. And if emotion does come up, it's fleeting.
Yeah.
So that if something happens, like you say to get offended, I say I've never seen that, but I've seen a reaction and then it's gone.
That's because whenever, let's say I get upset at something,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a very hot, very fast fire
Mm-hmm.
that burns itself out almost immediately.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Whenever I'm angry, I am angry.
Yeah.
And then it's gone.
Just like that. And I'm talking, it can be seconds. It can be
Walk
seconds.
out of a room, walk back in.
Yes. Like
Yeah.
nothing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the things that we're talking about today, that when you say your point of view, it doesn't mean that your point of view is wrong or is inappropriate. It's how you process. And I feel like in a lot of ways, the rest of us kind of got it wrong. Because you have the ability to let things go. Yeah. And that's an amazing gift. That's not something that's something that the rest of us work towards. And that's just an innate part of who you are.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing. So the things that you've learned through your life, you've grasped and you got a hold of them. And there's times when, this is what I know about the interaction that you have, that where it takes work for you to have a conversation, because when you're in a setting that takes a lot out of you,
mm-hmm.
so let's just say going to a class at college,
mm-hmm.
or doing a podcast, these are or
going to see my friends.
Mm-hmm. That those are things that you need energy. Like, you can serve your energy. So there's been times when you have class,
mm-hmm.
and later you're going to see friends. You've come home from class and you pass out. Yeah. I mean, you're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not able to go, if you don't get that time to recharge. You've canceled activities with your friends later on because you're so wiped out.
Yeah.
So while you've conquered the interaction, the conversation, it's still something that takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm constantly processing all these different things going on around me,
mm-hmm.
and making jokes and bantering back and forth with a bunch of other people. Like, for example, let's say that I'm with my friends and we're all doing D&D.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's something I do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And whenever we do D&D, there's other people in the house that we're friends with that don't necessarily play it with us.
Mm-hmm.
One of them can make a comment, and I can make a crack joke about what they said,
mm-hmm.
in the middle of the game that's directed towards them, and everyone else will get it.
Uh-huh. Okay, I got it. So two conversations basically are going on, yeah. And you've gotten to a point where you can comment on one conversation even though you're in a different conversation.
Yes.
Whoa, that's kind of amazing. That's kind of amazing. But I have a question about the conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So you started off talking about Grandpa's funeral and how that was something that was so obvious to you, that this was grief or sadness or whatever it was at the time that you understood it to be.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a happy experience for the people around you.
Right.
So when you have a conversation, does it wipe you out like it does, and you get exhausted because of interactions, because you're trying to read a perceived emotion?
Yes.
So you don't have those. I know you keep correcting me, so I don't mean to say that you're an emotionless. Emotionless. Thank you. Emotionless person. But in certain experiences and encounters, that's not what you're experiencing. So you're trying to read from the others in that environment what's happening. Right. Is that something is that true?
Yes. Yes, it is. And going back to the example of my grandpa's viewing,
mm-hmm.
I didn't mention this before, but I was also trying to comfort everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to be a stable rock in what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
That's an analogy for those who have autism.
Okay.
Being a rock in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
But of the stormy seas and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is very draining trying to be amongst a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've had the family reunion every year, and I enjoy it so much, but it's so draining.
Mm-hmm.
And it lasts like 3-4 days or something like that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's just, oh my gosh, I need to sleep.
Right.
And so it's not that I'm being antisocial or anything like that. It's just that I need to recharge so that I can be more social again.
Right. I get what you're saying completely. And the thing that I think is amazing about this is that you really do know yourself better than most people know themselves. It's something that you've really worked for and worked on, and you really do get what you need and what is it that you need to recharge and get going again, and that you do need this downtime before the next conversation takes place.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing, because not only in this area but in other areas of your life, you really do understand who you are. And you don't fight it. You don't think you got to change. You just give yourself what you need.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty amazing. That's why a lot of times I think that people would say, I have documents, I have paperwork saying that you have a disability,
Mm-hmm.
that what you have is a disability. And there are just so many times that I watch you and I learn from you and I go, I'm thinking, dude, we've got this backwards.
Yeah.
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 Right.
It's certainly a learning experience.
Mm-hmm. I think for you, I don't know that you're saying for you, but for the rest of us, for anybody that wants to learn from you.
Well, life is a learning experience if you think about it, but...
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that I don't have any more questions for you at this point, because it's funny, we're talking about you being exhausted. There's a shift that's taken place where I can tell that you need us to be done.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I mean, I can go a couple more minutes, but...
That's it. Yeah. Well, we don't need to push it. Is there anything else that you want to say?
Not particularly, no.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for that, Josh. It's pretty cool. This was your idea,
Yeah.
right? You came up with it, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It made it easier for me. For sure.
Yeah.
All right.
I know that you were a little bit worried about making sure we had enough for a podcast, but I'm happy it lasted long enough.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for listening today. And the podcast is now, I think your dad's put this on like 15 different, I don't know. It's on iHeartRadio now. And
wow.
Yes. YouTube, iTunes, and many others. Libsyn, I think.
What?
Libsyn?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Oh. So, again, thank you for listening. And you can find us all different places. And please share what we do. We're getting some wonderful feedback. We've been getting some wonderful emails from people, and it's wonderful. We love hearing from you. But it also helps us to know that that we're going in the right direction, and what we're doing does make a difference. Because it's just those of us sitting out here and recording a conversation and sending it out, and without feedback, we don't know whether we're hitting a mark or not.
Yeah, we hope we're being helpful.
Right.
But without your feedback, it's difficult to say.
Yeah, that's true. So let us know what you think. We can follow on Twitter. It's at Sonya King Comedy. My website, sonyaking.com. That's where you can find Josh Has Autism as well.
Mm-hmm. SONYA.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's right. So anyways, everybody, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for stopping by. And as always, love you.
Bye.